It's crazy, man, because I don't know. I don't think I told you this, but like you've recently inspired me to treat my LinkedIn like a Twitter. It's so weird because like I would typically scroll on LinkedIn and it was just full of well, people wouldn't even say yo, but it's like, hey everyone, I just got this job opportunity. Thank you for all the support from these mentorships. And it's like, it's all of these accomplishments essentially that people are like touting and showing. And when I go on your page and see your posts, like it's these vulnerable pieces and just like very personal. And for a long time, like that type of content, like I didn't even find on LinkedIn, like, and people wouldn't necessarily consider it quote unquote professional. But I was like, yo, this is the type of stuff that I think, and I have these personal conversations with myself about, but I don't see other people talking about it. And the one post that like originally connected us was you opening up just about your LinkedIn picture. Yes. I thought it was so dope. Yo, funny enough, when I saw that picture, I was like, yo, is Fashion Nova doing ads on LinkedIn?
That's funny. That's funny to me because I just don't consider myself at all fashionable. So I think I did a good job that day. Yeah.
Tell me about that post in particular though, because I mean, at least that's how like you and I met, but I think it was like such a powerful piece on just, you know, which is the topic that we talk about here, which is like that conflict that we often face between being ourselves versus quote unquote professionalism.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because I only just started using LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe like 2 months ago or something like that, like consistently. I've always had a LinkedIn for a long time. But like you, I always only saw like job promotions or award announcements, or I graduated. And so I never felt like I belonged on LinkedIn. So I was like, oh, I can only just use this to like look for a job, which is how I used it for a long time. But I had recently done a lot of work on myself and really coming to terms with who I am and loving myself more, and really, as I like to say, reigniting my self-worth. I wanted to start talking about who I was to different types of people, to different groups of people, and really show my community who you can be or who you are without feeling ashamed of that. And so, but it took a while, because when I got on LinkedIn, I was afraid to say things that I wanted to say, or show even my tattoo and my beard, because the picture that I had prior to that was a headshot that I had taken I used to professionally dance. And so it was a headshot that I was using as for auditions, and it didn't have my tattoo featured in it, and my beard was very low. So it, like it said in the post, I think it had to have been like 3 weeks or something that I was like pondering over if I wanted to share that picture. And I was like, oh no, I probably shouldn't, because so I don't know if you know this also, but I do work in HR. I work for this company in HR as like my day job. And so I was like, oh, like, can I post this? What are they going to say? What are my colleagues going to say? What is my boss going to say? What are people on LinkedIn going to say? What if I get fired or quit from this job and I'm looking for another job and they see this picture and they're like, oh, what? We can't hire him. Look what he looks like. And so I was just going back and forth with that. And the day that I decided to post it, I was just kind of like in this space of like, I don't care anymore, and I don't want to care. I trust myself. I have learned to stand in my truth, and I want to show that to the world. And so I was like, this is who I am. I have a tattoo. You know, my tattoos hold a lot of meaning to who I am, and I want to show that to the world. I also am very comfortable now with my body, because it's been a constant battle for me throughout my years, throughout the years of my life. And so being able to showcase that as well was like, you know, again, this is me, this is who I am, accept it. And so I felt so powerful that day. And I was like, I want to show people on LinkedIn that you can be yourself and not have to, you know, succumb to these feelings of like, this is a professional network only, corporate photo, corporate profile. And that's when I was just like, I'm just putting this out there. And I did not expect at all to get to receive the feedback that I got from it, to get that engagement. I was like, oh yeah, you know, whatever, it's just going to be, you know, a few likes or whatever. But then it started to go viral, and I was like, okay, this is crazy, and I don't know what to do, but awesome.
Yeah, tell me about some of the feedback that you received.
Yeah, so I got like my inbox was flooded with people just thanking me for showing up as my true self, and I think it really resonates with so many people because I think we either have gotten, I don't think we've fully gotten, but we're on our way to a place of people wanting to show up as themselves more and more at work. They don't want to just feel like they have to be what the world tells them to be, especially in the workplace, because there's so much more to us as human beings. We're evolving continuously every single day, every single year, right? And new generations are coming. You know, I don't know how old you are, but I'm a millennial, and now there's Gen Z, right? And so it's like people's minds are changing in the way that they want to see the world. You have a lot of things opening up, and people really trying to gain a better understanding of new languages, new culture, new ways of life, new everything, right? And so I think that's why it resonated with so many people. And I think people are also tired of not being able to bring themselves fully to work when they have so much going on outside of work that they're dealing with or that they're doing, you know. There's so many people that are doing, you know, side hustles or that have a passion, even if it's not a hustle, they're an artist or they just love to do something. And so why can't they talk about that? Why can't they bring that to work? And so, yeah, I mean, I would say like 99% of the feedback that I received via the comments and DMs were so amazing. And I had gotten like, I think I read 2 comments that were like, this is for Tinder, this is for Facebook. And I was just like, you know, the old me would have been so upset at that, you know, would have probably deleted my post because of that feedback. Because I used to be so like, I had such a low sense of self-worth that I would get like 500 great comments on things that I posted, but that one comment would just, I would identify with it, I would internalize it, and it would affect me and give me so much anxiety that I'd have to take a break from social media just because I kept replaying different scenarios in my head that actually were not true. So the old me would have deleted that, but yeah, I was just like, I saw those and I was like, okay, so yeah, maybe I'll get, I mean, not that I'm looking for a date, but because I have a partner, but I'm like, maybe I'll get a date out of this. Who cares if it's for Tinder? Like, you know, I was just like, I don't want to focus on that negativity because there's just so much positive that has come out of it.
Yeah, there's even that meme, I think it was like 4 squares, essentially, like in one picture. It was like Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And people would post different pictures of themselves in the different versions. Yeah. But in some point, it's just kind of like why can't I use the same picture that I use on Tinder, on LinkedIn? Right. You know what I mean? Unless you're like, I don't know if there are any boundaries, but like in most cases, right? Like you could probably use the same picture. I use the same picture in all my, like my LinkedIn picture is like, it used to be me at a party, just cropped out everything out. And it's just like my headshot essentially. Yeah. I'm so curious, like in your headshot, were you just wearing a turtleneck to hide your tattoo? Like what were you wearing in it?
Actually, no, I actually didn't have a tattoo at the time. That's another thing is like, I felt my old picture was not an actual representation of who I was in this moment. You know, that
you were
was
catfishing.
Right, exactly. I was I was catfishing, exactly. I was catfishing these companies, you know? This is how I look when I apply and when I show up to the interview, you're getting, you know, full neck tattoo and everything. But yeah, I just felt like it wasn't a full representation of who I am in this very moment. And I didn't want to lie to people when they, you know, connected with me or when they wanted to talk with me or when they hop on a video call or meet me for coffee. Like, because then, you know, I used to be really scared about showing up as myself now that I do have a tattoo, because I had like that picture, or even when I apply to jobs where it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm applying for an HR job. What's going to happen when I show up for a face-to-face interview and they see my tattoo? Like what can I wear that's going to hide it as much as possible? So I would always have those fears. And so I didn't want to have that fear anymore. And if I was going to use my LinkedIn as a place to gain new employment or to make connections, you know, personal or professional, quote unquote professional, you know, I didn't want to show up, you know, being this pretend person. I wanted to be me as my full self. So this is what you got.
Word. And you said like you did a ton of work on yourself to be more confident, right? And I think most of us go through that, right? Like we go through a phase of like self-discovery, if you will, and like figuring out who we are, and then leaning into that authenticity, right? But like, tell me a little bit about some of the work that you said that you went through, and maybe even like, when did that fear kick in for you?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, like so many people during 2020, it was a huge wake-up call for me. You know, Black Lives Matter protests were happening. George Floyd was murdered. Um, you know, the pandemic, we all were like out of work. And so in the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, yes, I'm going to use this time to work on myself, like, you know, become better in like this profession, or learn this, or do this course. I started even writing my book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was really awesome at first, and then I started to realize that I was using social media so much in a way that was not aligning with my morals. And it was just like, I was constantly clashing, because I've been talking about my mental health for a long time, for a few years now, via social media. But I also had not worked through a lot of it, through a lot of the issues that I was dealing with, through a lot of the traumas that I had faced when I was younger. And so a lot of that came up for me during the pandemic, because I was in a way, I was also facing some kind of like identity crisis, I guess you can say, because my mother passed away when I was 12, and my father was not in my life. And so after my mother passed away, I was raised by my friend's family who were white. And so I did not have an exposure to Black culture. And I also didn't really have exposure to queer culture. And so I was like, when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, I felt so conflicted, because I was like, do I deserve to be out there protesting? Am I, you know, what have I done for the Black community? What have I done for the queer community? I felt so ashamed for so long. And so I did go protesting for a while, but then a lot of those feelings started to come up. And so when that happened, I started to think about my childhood, and I was just like, okay, well, clearly there's things that I haven't faced. And I went into kind of like seclusion or isolation, to a point where I wanted, like, you know, there was a lot of like suicidal ideation, and my friends were very scared for me. I was very scared for myself. And finally, I was just like, well, I don't want to lose my life. I want to live. I know that I do, even though I'm feeling very strongly that I don't deserve to. What can I do to fix that? And the first thing that I thought about was talking to someone that could help me through this. And so I got into therapy, and therapy changed my life. You know, I hadn't been to therapy since I was a little boy after my mother had died, you know, and that was, I think I had gone maybe for like a year or something. And so I hadn't been to therapy for over 15 years. Yeah. And so when I started talking to my therapist, the very first conversation was just me crying for like 45 minutes, because I was holding on to so much that I was just ready to release that. And so once I released that, I continued therapy. I joined some support groups to talk to other people that had gone through the things the experiences that I had gone through as a child, and also through my teenage years and adulthood. Meditation helped me so much. And I don't know if that sounds cliche, you know, people talk about meditation a lot, but like, being able to sit in silence and just acknowledge all of my thoughts, and really just have them come in and come out, and say, yes, I'm here. I see those thoughts, but they don't control me. Just like really changed my perspective on life itself. And one big thing that I came across from this book called The Untethered Soul, by an author called by the name of Michael A. Singer. He talks about the voice in our head and how much we identify with the voice in our head. And in this book, you realize that, or he helps you to realize that we are not the voice in our head. And when I discovered that I could step away from this voice that kept telling me that I was unworthy, that I was trash, that I was gross, that I was too fat, that I was ugly, all of those negative things that voice kept telling me, I started to realize were not true. And I could step away from them and say, why am I saying these things? Why am I telling myself that I feel this way about myself, or that I am this way, when clearly I'm not? And so that was like a major mindset shift for me. And once I started to learn all of those things, I put them in place. And like now I practice a routine every single day. You know, I wake up, you know, 5:30 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. depending on the day, and I meditate, I read, I journal, and anytime that I have a negative thought, I step away from it and I say, you know, that's not true, you know. Or if I'm angry, if I'm having an emotion, you know, if I'm mad, I'm like, why am I mad? Is this serving me? Do I really need to be mad? Why is this happening? So all of those tools have really helped me to become the person that I am today, you know, and it's happened fairly quickly, but I think it's because I was so committed to becoming a different person, to becoming my authentic self.
Yeah, I love that, man. Same thing for me. It changed my life on so many levels, both personally and professionally. For me, like it took, well, my only exposure to therapy growing up was in the media. And in the media, like I never saw a person of color in like therapy on a show. You know what I mean? Like if anything, the way that we were portrayed in getting through some of our trauma was vices. Like if we were on a TV show, we were going to do something, we picked up a blunt or we picked up a bottle. And I only saw white people going to therapy. So like my early exposure outside of just media was, I had a friend growing up, my best friend growing up, he was like in my building. He went to high school with mostly white people, and he went to therapy early on. But it's not like he told me. It was more so like, you know, his family gossip, and I found out. But when I found out, I was like, oh, the white people got to him, fucking therapy, blah blah, right?
Yeah.
So like I had the representation, even, and I'm Dominican, he's Puerto Rican, so I was like, oh, somebody that looks like me going to therapy. But I was like too soon in my life to actually get it. It wasn't until like after college, it was like early in my career, my friend was going through a divorce, and then he went to therapy. And it was at that point where I was like, all right, somebody else that looks like me, but now I'm ready in my life to actually acknowledge the representation and also see it in myself, the need for it. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering for you, like, what made you even have the courage to go? Because I think now it's being more openly discussed, but that doesn't mean that we're going to actively go out and seek those resources.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, even for me, as I said, I hadn't been to therapy for so long. Like, I think I had been in therapy after my mom passed away when I was like from 12 to maybe, if I remember correctly, to the age of 14. But after that, it was like, it wasn't until now when I was 30. But I think for me I think I thought back to the moment when I was in therapy when I was a child, because the way that I was feeling, you know, back in the middle of 2020, you know, all of my depression and anxiety, I had never felt that way. Or the last time I had felt that way was when my mother passed away. I had never felt a deep, deep pain and loneliness and unworthiness prior to, you know, I hadn't felt something that strong since my mother had passed away. So I think I thought back to, oh, well, the last time I felt like this was when my mom died, and I was in therapy. Maybe therapy is something that's going to push me to become better this time around as well. And I thought about it too in that moment. I was like, why hadn't I been going to therapy before this? You know, why didn't I take a step into therapy to try and prevent this from getting so bad? And I think it was because I had such an obsession with validation through social media. And I think I thought that was my therapy. You know, I thought, oh, if I feel bad, then all I have to do is post a half naked picture on Instagram or Twitter and get likes and comments and messages of guys telling me, you look so good, can we meet up? You know, those kinds of things were providing me with this kind of like, you know, sense of this fake sense of self-worth, or this worthiness. I guess it's not self-worth, but it's a feeling of worthiness. You feel like you're worth something because other people are telling you. And so I think that for a while was my way of dealing with my pain, it was like a numbing thing for me. You know, I so badly wanted the attention of other people because I just couldn't face who I was myself. And so I think that's why I hadn't been to therapy in so long, but I stepped into therapy in that moment of my life because I knew that when I really needed help before, when I was younger, I was doing this type of thing, getting mental health, getting help from a mental health professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so deep, man. Just about social media and just seeking validation through likes and comments and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I was just so obsessed, and I think like nowadays, so I actually, funny enough, I had amassed like 50,000 followers across Instagram and Twitter. So you can only imagine how much more addicted I was to that validation. And so I broke away. I disabled my Instagram and Twitter for, it's been like maybe a year or so that I haven't been on them. And I'm so scared to go back on, or I've been scared to go back on because I fear of falling back into that trap of wanting that validation. So getting back on LinkedIn was really tough for me or getting on LinkedIn consistently actually was really tough for me because I was scared that I was just going to want the validation from people and that I was just going to be unsatisfied unless I got many likes or went viral, etc. And I then started to realize, or I then started to ask myself, why am I on social media? Like, what am I doing? What is the point of this? And I decided that I wanted to set an intention. And I think that setting an intention is what really helps us to, you know, see the bigger picture of what social media is and what it can do for us. And so when I set that intention specifically for LinkedIn, you know, going into my coaching business, I was like, well, I want to use this platform not only to speak about my experiences and share my story as a queer Black man, but I also want to be in service of my community because I feel that that is my purpose now. I feel that I want to help other young people that look and identify as I do, that don't have that representation, and help them to realize their value, help them to realize that they are worth being here, that they are worth telling their story, that they are worth everything that they want, you know? And I didn't have that growing up. And we don't really have that still till this day. And so I want to be that representation or at least add my voice to that, to make that change, to help make that change. And so now I go on social media with an intention, and I'm soon, I've been thinking about it, I'm going to get back on Instagram because I think a lot of my community is on there, not so much on LinkedIn. At least I haven't really found them too much. I've definitely connected with some other people that are in my community, and it's been such powerful and amazing conversations. But I think that my community as a whole is still very reluctant. Is that a word? Is that how you say it? to get onto LinkedIn because we just probably don't see it as a place that is going to serve us. And I completely understand that because I felt that way as well when I got on LinkedIn. I was like, well, do I belong here? I'm not white. I'm not straight. I don't have a college degree. So what am I going to do on this platform? Who's going to see me? Who's going to want to interact with me? And of course, I found that it's completely different than the thoughts I've had in my head, right? Whereas I'm actually seeing a lot of success on LinkedIn, and a lot of people are really resonating with what I'm talking about. But I didn't see that because I didn't have somebody else that I could look at really and say, oh, they're doing it, so I can do it too. So
that's fascinating, man. I never thought about like certain groups of people not seeing LinkedIn as a place for them. Like, because I always thought of it as like a professional network, and like everyone is a professional in some way. You know what I mean? But I actually had another guest on the podcast who identifies as queer, but he said for a long time he hid the fact that he was queer on LinkedIn specifically. Like in college, he was part of a few groups. He was like the president of, you know, some association. But and then I know that like some people put like hashtag queer in their description or hashtag anything, right? He hid that because he didn't want to be discriminated against when he would apply to jobs. And I was like, yo, I never thought about that. But it's crazy because when we think about it, it wasn't until like last year that it went up to the Supreme Court that it was illegal to discriminate based on sexual orientation. Like, crazy that it even took this long, right? But
right. Yeah, I think the fear is also still very much there for a lot of people. And I think in your experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think within the tech world, there's so many young people that they're being more exposed to like communities like the queer community, you know, where
Yeah.
they're coming up and they're already learning, they already know what pronouns are, they already know that there's
Yeah.
different you know, there's not only whatever they've been taught, they know that there's different, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, maybe your experience was that, I'm not sure, but there's still so many companies out there that are not really allowing us to be our full selves as queer people,
Yeah.
and really seeing us as everything that we are, because, you know, queer is such a broad term. There's so much that goes into that term, you know. There's different ways that people
Yeah.
identify. And so
Yeah.
even just identifying as queer, it is scary, especially when you work in the corporate world, because of the expectations that people have of you and who they think can be management, or what people's beliefs are, what people's politics are, what people's religion is. You know, a lot of people say that they leave that stuff out of their work, but I mean, we see it come up all the time, you know, where
Yeah.
people don't get, you know, promotions, or they get fired, or whatever the case may be. It,
Yeah.
you know, it's because people feel a certain type of way because of the way that they were taught or what they believe in.
Yeah. I mean, the dude even said that, you know, if he was at work and people didn't know that he was queer, well, he pretty much said like when he is at work, he would intentionally hide his feminine side.
Mm.
Because if you think about like quote unquote professionalism, it's like white straight males, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
he would try to like be like extra quote unquote masculine to show that he
Yeah.
was leadership material kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting too, like going back to your validation point, I don't think validation ever goes away, right? Like the need for
No.
validation, but
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting that the type of validation that you're getting now compared to previously, right? Like
Yeah.
before it was very like physically based. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, he's attractive, he's cute, or like whatever, that like all of those sort of things. Now the
Yeah.
validation is like, you are the representation that I was always looking for, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's dope, the type of validation you're getting now, and the type of representation that you're building, man. I just want to say that. And
Thank you.
um I am curious, right? Because a lot of your growth, a lot of your growth has come recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of your openness has come in the form of online, digitally,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, what has been your experience going into like in a work environment and just being comfortable with your authenticity?
Yeah. Um, you know, it's interesting because I don't really know why, but I've never at work really been scared to be gay or to be queer. I've always been my funny, positive, uh, dancing around self. I'm just that type of person. Um, so I don't know if I can really recall ever being looked down upon because of my queerness, but so the way that I grew up, you know, I come from a poor background. And so I was not raised, like I didn't get to go to college because I didn't have the money. And so I never saw myself being able to work in a corporate environment because I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have the education. I felt like I didn't have the knowledge. And I also felt like I didn't have the look, not only in terms of skin color, but in terms of like clothes that you wear. You know, I think about, you know, the first HR job that I ever got was for this amazing juice company that, you know, was pretty casual all the time. Even the management was like really cool and down to earth and had tattoos and stuff. So I was like, when I got into the company, I was like, oh, wow, I'm so lucky. I get to be myself all the time. This is really great. But because they were so casual, instead of having like casual Fridays, they wanted to have like a suit wearing Friday. And yeah, and so when they announced that, or like when my colleague had recommended that or suggested that we do that, I felt so ashamed because I was like, I don't own a suit. I've never owned a suit. You know, my interpretation of a suit was like a button down and some nice slacks, right? It wasn't like, you know, and these guys had tailor-made suits from designers, you know, they came from money. And so I felt really ashamed. And I remember thinking like, oh, well, I'm calling out that day. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not coming to work because I don't want to tell them that I'm poor. I don't want to tell them that I grew up in this, you know, never being exposed to this type of environment, or even thinking that I could be this type of thing. So yeah, that experience like really got to me, because I was like, oh, like I'm not being myself, or I'm not telling the truth about myself or what I've experienced, and I feel ashamed of that, which at that time, of course, I didn't think that I shouldn't be ashamed of that. But now I think back to it and I'm like, well, who cares if I didn't have a suit? Like, I shouldn't have to feel like less valuable just because I can't come to work wearing a tailor-made suit. Like, I still get my work done probably better than they do, because I actually try 10 times harder, also because I have to, because I'm queer and I'm Black, you know? So I remember that moment a lot, and I think back to it, and it was such a hurtful moment for me in that time. But I think I told myself, like, I didn't want to ever experience like something like that again. And so after I left that company, I joined like another company in HR.
Wait, but what did you end up doing that day though?
Oh, yeah, I didn't show up. I didn't come to
Oh,
work. I called out. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, yeah. So I was like, I don't feel comfortable, because the funny thing was that I was sharing an apartment with my colleague. Because the thing is that the company was new in the US, and so they had people from Europe coming out. And so there were some guys from like Sweden and Denmark that were staying in the city. And so that they had an apartment, and one of the guys was leaving back to Denmark. And so they had a free room. And I think I was looking for a place at that time or something. And so I ended up staying with with my colleague. Um, and so, you know, I felt like I was one of them. I felt like I was one of the management team. Like, and so when that moment came up, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to show them that I'm not like them. I don't want to show them that I don't got it like that I don't got money, I don't got a savings, I don't got, you know, what they got. And so, yeah, I just was like, I'm not coming into work. I'm just going to call out sick because I'm too scared to show that I come from a place that they don't come from. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've done that on many occasions, not necessarily calling out sick, but just being ashamed of certain things. Like, I always share the example of like, yo, what did you do this weekend? And I'm like, can't say I went to Dykeman and smoked hookah. Let me say I did some yoga in Soho. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would say stuff like that. But sorry, you were saying that you went to another job and you had another experience?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that when I went to this other job and I was applying for HR, I told myself I'm not going to be afraid of who I am. And of course, I was still working through that. So it wasn't like as it is now, right? But I wanted to really show up as much as I could for myself. And that meant being, you know, if I was a little bit feminine, I was going to be that. If I wanted to wear a button-down shirt that showed my tattoo, I was going to do that. And I did do that. You know, I did show up as much as I could for myself in that moment, for as much confidence as I had at that time, which still didn't match up to what I have now. But, you know, I think about it and I'm just like, yeah, like that one moment of me not wanting to show up to wear a suit at work really shaped, or really, you know, did something to me in that moment. But it helped me to really want to be more of myself. And so, you know, I'm glad it did happen, because it reminded me that, you know, I shouldn't be ashamed of where I come from. And I don't want to be.
What did that feel like, that first time where you maybe wore a button up that showed up the tattoo? Like, was there a voice in your head that was like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you should button that up. Yo, it's not too late to throw on the turtleneck. Like, what was that experience like? And then how do you think you were received? Like, was it what you expected?
So when I went to go get this new job, again in HR, I wore a shirt that showed my tattoo, my neck tattoo, for the interview.
Oh,
I
okay.
was so scared. I was like so scared, because I had only had, I think, six or so months of HR experience. I didn't have a college degree. I'm Black. I'm gay. You know, I have a beard. all of these things against me, and I'm putting another thing against myself with this showing of my tattoo. But I was just like, no, this is me. Like I know what I'm capable of. You know, the job that I had prior to this, I added so much value to the company. Like I helped them grow so much with the work that I was doing. I said, I don't care that I don't have a college degree. I don't care that I have a tattoo on my neck. I add so much value as myself, and I'm going to show up as that. And so whether or not I get this job, I want to walk in there and walk out of there with my pride and knowing that I'm worth something. So yeah, I went in there, but I was so scared that even in the interview, I mentioned like 3 times, I know I don't have a college degree, but I swear I'm the right person for this job. Like, please look over that I don't have a college degree because I can do this job. And it worked because I got the job. But like the fear was like almost crippling because I sat there and I remember waiting because the HR manager that was interviewing me was like meeting with someone else or whatever. So I had to wait for like 15 minutes and I was like sweating, sitting there, just like scared. But after I walked out of there and I was like, you know what, if I don't get this job, I showed up as myself. You know, I showed them who I was, not only physically, but mentally. I showed them that what value I can add, even though I don't have this piece of paper that says that I went to this school for 4 years and I paid this much money to get this education. I'm not hating on anyone for doing that, but you know, I showed them that I can add value without these credentials that other people have, you know? So I felt amazing and I was proud of myself and I got the job too. So
yeah, I fuck with that, man. I love that. I mean, it's way better than catfishing them, showing them one person and then it was like, who the hell is this person?
Right.
When you actually get the job.
Exactly.
That's dope, man. I love that. I've always wondered too, like in HR specifically, I feel like there's this perception of like what an HR person is supposed to look like. Like they're supposed to be 100%. Like the most buttoned up professional, like representation of the like quote unquote professional, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like of the company. Like there's always this perception of like, oh, like hide, like HR is coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, is there added pressure for you? Do you feel that being HR?
You know, what's interesting is that I have gotten it in almost all of the companies that I worked at. Like, you're HR? Like,
really?
And I'm like, yeah, I'm HR. Like, what can I do?
Like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
You know exactly. What I mean? You know, exactly. Like, oh, I thought you were this person, or I thought you were that person. And
what did they say? Thought you were what?
Yeah, like I can't really remember exactly what people have said to me, but you know, like, I've just gotten things, and so, but other questions that I've gotten, and this brings me so much joy from other people of color, is, wow, I want to get to where you are, or how did you get there? What did you do? You know? And so for me, it was like, oh my God, yes, like I'm so happy that they're seeing me in this position because it shows them that they can get here too, you know? And I always tell them, and I tell them all the time, like, when they ask me, yeah, I don't have a college degree. Like, and for me, sometimes I feel like there was a little bit of luck in it because I had someone that looked at me and believed in me and said, you know, I don't care that you don't have this. I'm going to take you on because I see how hard you work. So to an extent, I feel like there was a little bit of luck there for me, but I still busted my ass. Like, I worked really hard, probably harder than a lot of the people that were around me. So, but to know that I was showing them that they could do something else than whatever it is that they were doing, not to say that what they were doing was not worthy or was not good, but yeah, they can see themselves in other places that they may have never seen themselves. So it felt really good to be kind of that representation for them. But yeah, like that was always a great feeling. And I think I answered your question, but
yeah, bro. I be telling people, like, being like, the only way that we're going to redefine professionalism is if we are ourselves. And it's so much bigger than us though, because like us being ourselves isn't just helping us. It is inspiring other people to do it, because like someone said this so well on my podcast. They were like, what we do when we be ourselves is that we become a mirror for other people. Like they're not going to see everything of themselves in you, but they may see like, oh, he's black, or something as simple as he has a beard. Oh shit, I don't have to shave anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like these little things that they see reflected back on them, and they're like, all right, well, I can bring that part of myself, and that's the only way we're gonna do it, man. I'm getting chills just even think about it, man, because that's dope. And it goes back to the validation. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of validation that you're doing things in the right way, but it's different validation in the sense
Yeah.
that it's not so like, I guess, vanity wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like I also agree that, you know, you never really stop looking for validation, but I think,
Yeah.
like you said, it comes in a different form, you know, like when you start to be in service of other people rather than being in complete service to yourself, that level of like accomplishment feels amazing because you're providing someone else an opportunity or an experience and giving them a chance to see or be something else or experience something else. And through that, you're gaining so much more for yourself. And I think that that's how, I guess that can be like a form of that validation, whereas that your life is becoming much more better by providing something for somebody else without even the thought of having anything in return. And that's why, you know, I want to go in the service, you know, to help other people, especially from my community, because not just to gain anything from that. I know that's going to come naturally or spiritually or however it comes, it's going to come no matter what. But just knowing that I can help somebody else in either by them looking at me or you know, it could be directly or indirectly, but just knowing that I'm doing something to try and potentially better somebody else's life provides me all the validation that I need, you know, even if I don't see it as a form of monetarily or financially or educationally or whatever it may be. Like, I think spiritually for me, it's just, it provides me so much energy. You know, when I get messages from people saying, wow, thank you for being you. Thank you for writing that post. I resonated with that. Like, it doesn't even matter if they sign up for my coaching. Like, their messages are enough for me in that moment because it shows me that what I'm doing is the right thing, that I am making a difference regardless of, you know, where I come from or what I've been through or who I used to think I was.
Yeah. I love that, man. And a lot about what you spoke about too is, you know, sometimes we have a voice in our heads that tells us, maybe we're not valuable enough or worthy enough. I'm wondering if you've ever received some of that feedback, but not in the form of the voice in your head. Like, have you ever received that feedback from just someone directly telling you, like, you aren't enough for, like, you aren't professional or you aren't worthy for this specific position or opportunity? I think that's real too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know that I've gotten it directly in terms of, you know, for jobs that I've interviewed or even being in a job. I mean, maybe it's been said indirectly or under someone's breath. I'm sure that it has. But I've felt it from people. I've felt it from people, and I've seen it in their face without them actually having said anything. And the place that I see it a lot, or I've seen it a lot, is when I'm interviewing other people. Actually, you know what? I actually think about one of the first interviews that I had when I was in HR, and it was this, so here I was, this Black queer man, and also my colleague next to me was also a Black man. And we were interviewing this white man who had a professional or business corporate background, but wanted to be part of our company because it was exploding across the US, et cetera. And I remember sitting in this interview with him and him just kind of like, he was like, oh, I'm here for an interview. And I'm like, I forget his name. We'll call him Matthew or whatever. Are you Matthew? And yeah, I'm here for the interview. Where is so-and-so person? Like, oh, I'm that person. Let's have a seat over here. And it was kind of like, you can feel that hesitation from them. And so I think it's because he didn't expect me to show up and be that person, like interviewing him for a position in the company. So I have felt it from people, and from like the hesitation and from the looks during interviews, even recently, not so recently, but at least within the last year or two, where I've just been like, people are shocked to see me turn on my camera and say, hello, welcome to the interview.
What is it they say that, sometimes the looks they give you are worse than what they say to you?
1000%. Yeah. Because it's like, you want to know what they're thinking, and
Exactly.
and then the thing is that you think you're crazy because you're like, am I overreacting? Like, are they really thinking this? Like, what's going on? And so you just like, you go crazy because you really want to know. And then the thing is, like, internally or like deeply in your gut, that you're right. You know that what they're thinking is exactly what you're thinking, but you still kind of have that like, oh, well, maybe I'm overreacting and whatever. But yeah, definitely.
You almost need that other person that was with you in the room that day to be like, yo, did you see that? Am I bugging?
Right. Exactly.
It's like if you're on yourself in that call with just that person, like you have no one else to be like, yo, nobody saw that.
Right, exactly.
Oh yeah, man. I appreciate you, man, because I appreciate you, man, because you're inspiring so many. Like I said, you've inspired me already to be more authentic, in particular, on a place like LinkedIn, because I've been guilty of just contributing to like the type of content that's already on there. But as you think about continuing to be your most authentic self, just finish off here. Like, what's one thing that continues to inspire and empower you to keep moving forward in that authenticity journey?
Yeah, it's definitely seeing other people be themselves. When I see a person step outside and wear exactly what they want to wear or walk exactly how they want to walk, and they walk by a group of people that don't look like them or don't represent or don't identify like them or whatever the case may be, I see that, I'm like, wow, that person is so brave. That person is so courageous. Like they just really don't give a damn. And to see that, it reminds me that I can be my complete and whole self. I can be my authentic self, because no matter what, the opinions of other people are not going to determine my happiness, and it shouldn't determine my happiness. And I can see that when I see other people being themselves and walking outside with a smile on their face, because people are talking crap about them, sometimes loudly, and they just walk by and like, okay, I don't care, bye, And for me, that's like, oh, wow, like that's so powerful. So that's definitely something that really empowers me to kind of like, to really want to be myself all the time when I see other people doing it.